right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you after a Rams Week 1 win against our division rival, the Seattle Seahawks, where we won in Seattle 30-13 in a game that I think it's fair to say, Jake, most Rams fans think exceeded expectations. Whether you thought the Rams were going to win, whether you thought they were going to lose, whether you had no idea who was going to win or lose, I think it's safe to say that the Rams played a lot better than a lot of people thought. And I think that there was some surprising players that we'll talk about throughout the episode that all positively surprised us as well. Jake, going into Seattle for any team, it's not easy to win. Especially going against your division rival when you're in the same division as Seattle. It's loud. The weather usually isn't great, although I think it was somewhat fair on Sunday. And it's just an environment that is kind of historically not so kind to opposing teams. Take that with the fact that it's our division rival. What does this week 1 Rams win mean for this team? And how does it help, obviously, the momentum going forward?
Yeah, Alexis, it means everything to this team. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And I get that, but this is about how you start. Okay. When you go into a season, you get rid of Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, Leonard Floyd. We already know why. We know the rationale. We know they're trying to get rid of the credit card debt now. They're trying to pay it all off now. They could have, gone through another year of FM picks. They could have done it this year, and then they would have just absolutely crippled their salary cap moving forward. So they're doing the smart thing. They're carrying $75 million in dead money. But when you do something like that, you also know something. Okay, trading away the best cornerback in football in his prime. The way they did, they knew something. It's not that Jalen was bad or they knew something about Jalen. I think it was something they figured out about the defense, about the scheme, about last year. Hey, we played bend, don't break a lot. Okay. We played a very passive offense that's going to keep, or passive defense that's going to keep everything in front of us because our offense really struggled to score. We're not going to have to do that this year. Our offense is going to kick some ass. And so that's essentially what we saw, Alexis, is that they came out of the gate and the offense kicked ass. But in addition to that, the defense didn't play 20 yards off the line of scrimmage or anything like that. I mean, you saw some press coverage. You saw some bump and run. You saw physicality. It didn't matter. And I understand people are saying, oh, Raheem, what are you doing? You're doing this now that you don't have Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, and Bobby Wagner. Understand this. Raheem didn't have a chance. If you didn't like the bend don't break last year, neither did I, neither did Alexis. But we understood the reason for it was when your offense is so abysmal like the 2022 Rams, which I don't blame everyone because there were so many injuries, right? But when your offense is that abysmal, okay, you can't score. The only way to keep you in games is to play that bend don't break, hold them to field goals. The problem with the defense last year is when the offense is abysmal and the defense is on the field the entire game, they get tired. Perfect example of that, Tampa Bay. That game came down to the wire. Tom Brady went down the field and everyone's like, oh, it's vintage Tom Brady. He wins the game at the end of the game. No, that happened because the defense kept them in that game the entire time while the offense failed to score, and constant getting back on the field, 3 and out after 3 and out, putting them back on the field, having to go out there exhausted. At the end of the game, yeah, they gave up the game because they were absolutely gassed from being out on the field. So, Alexis, long answer to your question, but yes, it absolutely matters what happened. This was a great win. And, I think this is something you could build off of. And it's almost kind of like an I told you so. Like Sean McVay and company are like, thinking, all right, you guys thought we were going to be trash? We're not going to be trash. I don't know what we're going to be, but we're not going to be getting Caleb Williams. I can tell you that much.
I was just about to say, so to everyone who thinks that the Rams were trying to tank, or anybody who wanted the Rams to try to tank, this is your wake-up call. It's not happening. It never was going to happen. Whether you thought that the Rams were intentionally trying to tank, or you're sitting here going, I really want Caleb Williams. I hope the Rams lose every game. It's not happening. So I hope that we can finally put this to rest. I know there's a group on Twitter of Rams fans who are just so upset right now. which let's not get into what we think about that, but it's not happening. Sorry, Caleb Williams is not going to be a Ram unless, we make some crazy trade next draft
He
or he
could
doesn't
pull a
come out.
crazy Eli Manning.
His dad kind of already insinuated that
he would.
He would. So, I mean, I don't care about Caleb Williams. I really don't. I'm not like
talk that. Because I like him. You know that. I like USC, and I don't care about Caleb Williams right now because this is Rams football, and they just won week 1 when everyone was counting them out, including you. No, I'm kidding. But still, everyone was counting them out.
Let me clarify something.
Because
a lot of people got...
I get it.
No, I know that you get it, but a lot of people got really, really mad at me on Twitter that I was like, well, I think it could go either way. I think it's, and I said this on the last episode too. I was like, it could go either way. It's going to be a close one, but I think that in the end, the home team, Seattle's going to win. Like, that's what I said. And I was like, I hope I'm wrong, right? There was people on Twitter that were like, how can you not predict the Rams to win every game? And I was like, kind of didn't think they were being serious. Jake, they were being so serious. Like, they said if you don't predict the Rams to win every single game, that you're not a real fan and that you lack passion. I'm just going to tell you all right now that neither I nor Jake are predicting the Rams to go 17-0. It just would not be, it would not serve anybody justice to sit here and lie to everybody and say, oh yeah, this team is going undefeated and whatever. That's not what we do. So if you were one of those people that was very angry with me, I really hate to imagine what your reaction is going to be when I predict the score of the Eagles versus Rams game. That is going to not be fun for some of y'all. But anyway, the game, Jake, and I'm debating if I want to talk about the defense or the offense first, because I think they both were pleasantly surprising to a lot of people, maybe for different reasons. But let's talk about the offense, because I think the offense here's what I'll say. I think there were 3 teams, Jake, that looked really good in week 1. I actually think most teams in week 1, as you know, terrible. Looked awful. I mean, just
embarrassing. Just like flat out.
Especially the prime. Yeah. And the last 2 primetime games, Sunday and Monday Night Football, were just... Monday Night Football got exciting at the end, but I mean, overall, just the football this weekend, bad. But there were 3 teams that I think looked really good on Sunday. One was the Rams. Sadly, the second team was the 49ers.
Oh, they looked really good.
They looked, because the Pittsburgh San Francisco game was one of my local games. So for the first slot, I just turned that on because I was like, and I ended up doing the split screen with Sunday Ticket. But for the first half, I watched the 49ers Steelers game, and it just crushed my heart because I was like, oh my God, like I hate the 49ers so much, but they looked so good against Pittsburgh, but whatever. So the third team was the Cowboys. So unfortunately for us, all those teams are in the NFC. None of the AFC teams perform that well, but there's still time. But the Rams were one of 3 teams that I thought looked really good on Sunday. And I think what surprised people who aren't paying attention was the Rams offense. Like, I think a lot of people who are fans of the Rams, Jake, have been like really nervous about the defense because it's young, it's unproven. We lost a lot of key players. But in the media, it's like everybody is acting so shocked about the Rams offense, which is why I think we should talk about it first. Because Matthew Stafford, baby, he has still got it. And you know what? It just goes to show when your offensive line can play halfway decent, if you've got a good quarterback, they're going to perform. And I say that having watched the Chicago Bears non-existent offensive line this weekend, just absolutely putrid, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are a Super Bowl favorite, but they do not have an offensive line, and they just released Lael Collins. So that goes to show you what's going on there. But Jake, other than me, just
thing there.
I just ramble about, because you know how I am about offensive lines. Like, if you don't have an offensive line that is at least just like doing the bare minimum, it just nothing will work. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. So for our offensive line to give Matthew Stafford like more than 3 seconds to throw, we saw what he could do. So Jake, what did you think of Matthew Stafford's performance in this game?
Oh man. I mean, I'd marry it if I could. That was freaking awesome. I mean, here's the thing though. Okay. Matthew Stafford, like it wasn't that every receiver was open. Even when receivers were blanketed, Stafford was just in his bag and he's like, I'm just better than you are. And Alexis, we kind of got this idea on Twitter when those Raiders and Broncos reporters were just oohing and awing over Stafford on the timeline. They're like, Stafford is literally a jugs machine. I mean, this thing, the ball's coming out, it's going right to the receiver, and he's throwing two defenders, throwing in between two defenders, three defenders. He's putting it exactly where it needs to be. He's unstoppable. That's what we're hearing, even without Cooper Kupp. So, okay. But we're also hearing the defense look pretty good without Aaron Donald. That's also an interesting one. But going back to that, okay, because those two teams played that the Rams played against, in preseason and in that joint practice, and they had an ugly game, but it's hard to tell how good they are, right? But the Rams came out. We don't know how good Seattle is, to be fair, but the Rams came out. I'll tell you right now, Seattle was not ready for what they got. They were a Mack truck to Seattle's defense, and here's why. Okay, Seattle. And I mean, you saw Pete Carroll after the game, and he's like, oh, he had no idea what just happened. That's the sign you got outcoached and you didn't take this game seriously. Okay. You were at home. You didn't take this game seriously. Here's why. Okay. I'm going to look you right in the eye, Pete Carroll. You probably don't watch the show. I would be shocked if you did. This is why the Rams won the way they did. Okay. The Seattle Seahawks sold out to stop the run. Now you could say that's a good plan. Cam Akers had 100 yards last time in Seattle Week 18, right? They're respecting Kyron Williams. They believe in this run game. They want to. That's not what happened. Okay, they didn't believe in Sean McVay's belief in the passing game. I don't think they even believed that Stafford was going to be him in this game. Okay, I think they sold out. They stopped the run. They literally put 8-9 guys in the box. And at the end of the day, when you look at those wide receivers, okay, when you look at those wide receivers, the Seattle did not take them seriously. Because if they did, Puka Nacua went and had 10 catches for 119 yards. And Tutu Atwell, well, he still probably would have gotten his because of his speed. But they were just, I mean, Van Jefferson dropped a touchdown. Matthew Stafford, who was unbelievable, Alexis, overthrew Puka Nacua. And they missed 2 field goals, a block as well. Fun fact, Alexis predicted a block just for the wrong team. So we did actually get the blocked field goal. But here's
my wires got crossed. I must have meant the other team, and I just said it wrong.
I still think that's impressive. Like, I called the block punt. You called the block field goal. It was on the other team, but still, that's like Alexis Stradamus right there, the Oracle. So here's how I looked at it. Okay. When you take into account that the Rams ran the ball 40 times, despite not gaining yards, that still set up the passing attack. Okay. Seattle would not get off of that run game. They're like, you're going to have to beat us through the air. Well, Stafford did that. Okay. No touchdowns. Who cares? He led 3 touchdown drives. They did not punt once besides that one drive that was fluky with that call. It's then 1st and 30, right? They gave up on that drive. That's the only time they punted. And in the second half, they had every drive was a scoring drive. So we don't know how good the Rams are because they could be the best team in the NFC right now. We don't know. Things are going to have to play out. But I can tell you right now, that was not fluky. That was not a fluke win. That was a win where they won without a running game because, trust me, Kyron did everything he could, but they were all there. They were all there in the box. The reason Kyron had a better game than Cam is because Kyron broke those tackles. He had to make guys miss. He had to sneak his way, get extra yardage. He was quicker. He was more of like a jitterbug, I called him. That helped. But let's be honest here. Run game didn't work. Run blocking wasn't great. Okay. But the Rams won despite those two things, despite the fact the officiating was garbage. I mean, it was bad. But they won 30-13, so it didn't matter in the end like last year. And so that, to me, tells me it's not a fluke win. The Rams punched them in the mouth. I know stranger things have happened week 1. The Rams have proven, I think Sean McVay, his career, 6-1 in week 1 games, last year being the only loss should tell you all you need to know.
Well, Jake, let's talk about that run game because I have been chomping at the bit to talk about Kyron Williams more, as everybody knows. But in all seriousness, Kyron Williams looked great, guys. If you watch the game, he looked really good. You have to imagine that my heart was beating outside of my chest every time that I saw him get the ball. 2 touchdown runs, and he should have had the third, where he was half a yard short, and then they ended up trying to do the quarterback sneak. When that didn't work, they put Cam Akers in and he got it. So 2 touchdowns, 1 for Cam. But what I really want to talk about, even though I am very, very excited that people can see what Kyron Williams can do, because that's just like the tip of the mountain. As
It's just
Jake
the tip.
knows, it's just the tip. So imagine what else is coming, guys. I mean, as Jake mentioned, Seattle actually did do a pretty good job of stopping the run game. Like, that was their goal. And Kyron still, I think he had 1 rush for negative yards. And that was just because like the offensive line got beat and he just got decimated. But he always got back to the line of scrimmage and made, I'm trying to think of the stat right now, and of course I can't remember the number, but I think it was like 2.8 yards after contact average or something like that.
No,
like
it was a full yard over Cam.
Yeah, I mean, and what I want to talk about in this context is because I don't want to just get on here and brag about Kyron Williams for half an hour, because I could do that, and how much I love him and how great he looked, and how I'm glad that everybody is realizing I'm not just biased, that he actually has talent.
I love that for you.
But yeah, it was, well, Alexis just likes Kyron because he's from her hometown. Alexis just likes Kyron because he went to Notre Dame. I mean, yes, that was initially why I really liked him, but I also watched him at Notre Dame, and I also knew what he could do. And now all of you guys are going to see it too. If he stays healthy and they stop putting him on those kick returns that make my heart stop for 2 minutes every time he's out there. I don't like that, but
they need to do that right now. Get him off that, because you're using him that much and he's out snapping Akers. By the way, that was not a scheme thing. That was not a game plan thing. I think that's the thing moving forward. I think he's going to out snap Akers.
And that's what I wanted to talk, like I wanted to bring up, because here's the thing, because I saw a lot of people during the game like Sean McVay hates Akers, or why Akers must be hurt. There's no logical explanation. Like, Cam Akers has to be hurt. None of these things are true. Cam Akers actually got more carries than Kyron did.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't realize. And I think I have it pulled up here. Cam Akers got 22 carries. Kyron got 15. So Cam Akers actually got 7 more carries than Kyron. The reason it feels like Kyron was out there way more than Cam, it was because he actually was, but he was running routes. So we did see Kyron more on our screen, but he was in there for pass protection, which he's very good at, and Cam Akers is not. And then 2, he also is a very good route runner. I mean, when we looked at practice and training camp, I mean, Kyron was catching 30-yard touchdowns from Stafford, like with first team. So that was our indication that they were going to use him in the passing game. They tried, and the ball didn't go where either one of them wanted it to go. But regardless, that is what I wanted people who maybe didn't realize that, maybe didn't look at the box score, to realize is Cam actually did outcarry Kyron. And what Jake and I talked about on the preview episode is we did like a comparison between David Montgomery and Jamar Gibbs and the Lions, how David Montgomery is kind of more of that traditional running back, and Jamar Gibbs is like that hybrid who's quicker. That's how Kyron and Cam are, and that's, I think, the Rams' intention. But I will say,
did we text about that during the game? I can't remember.
We might have. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I will say, Cam did have a couple, and I know we did talk about during the game is, and our friend Blaine tweeted out a statistic about this as well, like the difference between the carries between Cam and Kyron. Cam did not find the holes and have as good a vision as Kyron did either. He didn't break away from the tackles. We started to see kind of back before Cam got hot at the end of the year, when he was just kind of like running into offensive line, or he wasn't really going anywhere. we saw that as well. So does that maybe impact how the Rams are using Cam? Are they frustrated that maybe the vision has gotten bad again and they prefer, Kyron, who is, finding those holes better, and he's a lot more slippery than Cam is. He's quicker. I don't know. But what I do know is Cam actually did get more carries than Kyron. And they also are very different running backs, and I don't really think that the goal is to make one better than the other. I don't think that's the goal. Now, is Kyron going to end up playing more than Cam? I think yes. I do think that that Kyron is going to be more involved in the Rams offense just because he has the ability to pass protect and he has the ability to be a receiver, but I don't think the intention is like to make it a competition between the two. I think they're supposed to be used very differently. Jake, what are your opinions on this run game and Cam and Kyron's performance on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's important not to overreact over one game with Cam Akers. It's not anything against Kyron Williams. I think if anything, it just validates what Kyron Williams was probably going to do before he got hurt on that, week 1 freak injury, But this is really interesting because you mentioned our guy Blaine over at Turf Show Times, and look, he just tweeted out something. I don't know if you just saw this. But he just tweeted this out. I'm going to give him props because this is really good detective work by Blaine. Cam Akers in September and October has 99 carries, 293 yards, a 2.95 yards per carry average in 0 100-yard games. But when push comes to shove and Akers is in December or January, he has 303 carries, 1,245 yards, a 4.1 yards per carry average in 500-yard games. So this slow start that he gets off to is clearly a pattern if he continues to do this. Now, this could have been just a bad game. It could have been a bad game for him. Could have been a bad fit. Seahawks just watched him torch him last year all over the ground, 100 yards, found the end zone, I believe. And we've been talking about his last 6 games last year were really good. But somewhere in there, we're going to find out the truth here in the next few games because Cam Akers, I've defended, I've gone against, and I've defended again. And he made me look silly at the end of last year. That's true. He did. He was a top 3 running back to end the season, those last 6 games. But Alexis, Blaine has been saying it. You mentioned it. Those run defenses weren't very good. They were actually really bad. They were some of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So it's like you don't want to take anything away from Cam. And clearly it's not like the run game was effective on either side. But when you're wondering why Cam Akers is getting outsnapped by Kyron Williams, and you see Kyron's in pass pro, Kyron's going out for wheel routes. Kyron is a jitterbug. He's running outside the tackles. He's running inside. He's slipping 2 tackles, 2 would-be tacklers, and he's finding his way to skip forward for an additional 3 yards. Akers isn't doing that. And as a matter of fact, the thing I'm concerned about, remember when Todd Gurley lost weight? I wasn't a fan of that. Because when Todd Gurley lost weight in 2019, he got brought down by arm tacklers. Okay, now you don't have that big linebacker body at the second level with that speed, right? So it was to make him faster, but in turn, Cam Akers gained weight. And Cam Akers, this is a big storyline. He gained 10 pounds. And everyone's like, Cam is jacked. Cam looks slower. He looks noticeably slower, Alexis. I will say this, if this continues, this is deja vu all over again, okay? This is exactly what we went through last year. I'm not off the Cam train. I'm not saying Cam Akers is done for. I'm just saying that we need to be real here. We need to have a real conversation. I know it's one game, but if this keeps up, Alexis, this is just like last year. Henderson was the starter. Cam Akers ran into an issue where his confidence was shot. Sean McVay started forcing the ball to Cam Akers to get his confidence back on track, alienated Darrell Henderson. Henderson's cut. Akers takes off. You cannot tell me for a second if Cam goes to Sean McVay this year and says, look, I can't do this with Kyron. You're not getting rid of Kyron. You're trading Cam. And so that's the thing, is that it was nice to see them repair that last year. And we don't know. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble for anything they might, they haven't done yet. But I'm just saying, like, Jonathan Taylor at the deadline, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams are feeling like they need that extra jolt because they don't want Kyron to be the bell cow. Kyron shouldn't be the bell cow. Kyron should do exactly what he did on Sunday, right? You should keep him healthy. You don't want to give him, 400 touches a season. But the way they used him, they need another guy. And if Cam Akers isn't going to be that guy, then they might decide, you know what? This sucks. We didn't want to do this, but we wanted Christian McCaffrey last year. Let's go out and get Jonathan Taylor because that value is going to drop as the season goes on. And I'm very curious to see if they go that route. You know me, I would go edge defender. I'm just saying, keep it on the radar. I did not buy that for a second because Alexis, the big thing when we talked about Jonathan Taylor and why I was against it was Akers is going to go off. Kyron's really good. I feel good about the running back room. Right now, I feel like Kyron's really good, and Cam Akers is kind of like, after everything he did at the end of last season, where was that? Because that was nowhere to be seen.
Well, and something I will say with Cam and the confidence thing, and I think a couple people noticed this, and you and I talked about this as well. You could tell in the fourth quarter that he was like, his confidence was zero. And I did feel bad about that. And he is definitely, I think, somebody who wears that on his sleeve, kind of like a Chase Claypool. It's not a good thing because when Cam was in, he'd make a run. And then even after he got his touchdown, like he was not happy. And I do think that is a little bit of a problem. I don't know that, and again, not being like accusing him of anything, but like some players don't really like having that shared role. And that was something that Cam was pretty open about, I feel like, last season. So that's not like breaking news.
He forced Darryl off the team.
Yeah, he had a real problem with what was going on with him and Darryl. So the Rams appeased Cam. But like you said, if that starts happening again with him and Kyron, you're going to offload the guy that's in a contract year, which is Cam, not Kyron. So we'll see. I like both of them. I think they're a good duo. I think they have a very different skill set, and I think that they both can help the Rams with what they can offer. But Cam, I think, needs to just start playing a little bit better as well because it's not. I think he had some moments that were a little concerning in the first game. But to finish off the offense, let's talk about the receiving game, Jake. Because when Cooper Kupp got hurt, the number one name you heard was Van Jefferson. It was Van Jefferson. This is Van Jefferson's role to lose. He is wide receiver one. He is going to be the Rams' receiving savior on this offense. And that is not what happened in week one, Jake. In fact, Van Jefferson had a really bad play. That was really disappointing. And in a way, I felt like kind of was maybe the nail in the coffin on his wide receiver one dreams because the receivers that had the big game, well, one was Puka Nacua, the rookie from BYU, who I want to remind everybody I had going to the Rams in my mock drafts, and they did end up drafting him. So I just want to throw that out there. And two was Tutu Atwell, who I think had 6 receptions, and then Puka had 10 or 11 or something like that. So yeah, those were the two guys that were consistent for the Rams. But really, Jake, Puka Nacua, I mean, talk about a rookie debut. I mean, he was close to breaking records for a rookie receiver in their debut game. I mean, it was almost as if Stafford found him a couple times and he was like, you know what? Let's go. The trust is on. They had him in a way, Jake. They kind of used Nacua like Cooper Kupp. If you look at the routes that he was running, the way that they got the ball to him,
did. Yeah.
They're very similar type of receiver. So I want to hear your thoughts on Puka. I want to hear your thoughts on Tutu. And lastly, I want to I also want to talk about Van because in my mind, when Cooper Kupp comes back, it's like I feel like the Rams still don't have, and I think I was hoping Van would step into this role. And really it could be Ben Skoranek too, but he's obviously fallen down the depth chart. Is like that big-bodied receiver that is made for the 50-50 ball, not really in the slot, the vertical threat, kind of like what we saw them start to use Ben Skoranek with. And I feel like Van blew his chances a little bit with that drop. And then they didn't target him really on any 50-50 balls. So I kind of just threw a lot of wide receiver questions at you. But Jake, overall thoughts on all those receivers in game one?
Yeah, well, let's first start with Puka Nacua, who my comparison, they're not the same body type, but I think the type of and keep this in mind, he wasn't a rookie when this happened. He played 3 games, didn't catch a pass. UDFA out of UMass, Victor Cruz for the Giants. I live in New York. I remember Victor Cruz mania when that guy went off. He had 1,500 yards in his first year starting, Alexis. This is kind of that vibe I'm getting. People forget how good and how dominant Victor Cruz was before he started dealing with injuries. I mean, everyone was doing the salsa. Everyone was talking about Victor Cruz, and then he fell off the face of the earth because of the injuries. Alexis, when we're talking about somebody who just comes out of nowhere, I understand there are a lot of people that were high on Puka Nacua, but I see kind of that Victor Cruz, like, and again, they're not the same player, but that's kind of who he reminds me of for whatever reason. In addition to that, you see Kupp, you see Woods. I think you see a little Debo. Not saying I think he's a way better receiver than Debo, because I don't think Debo's a great receiver. I think he's a great playmaker. I think that's the thing that makes him great. He rounds off his routes. He's a body catcher. Like, Puka Nacua is going to bring that ball in, and he's going to give with the ball. He has great hands. The body control on the outside was, I mean, that was an insane throw by Stafford. That guy was not open. And Nacua he got both feet in bounds. He looked like a man amongst boys. But the thing that was kind of funny is I looked at, and this is maybe the wrong way to look at, I looked at that as Tutu Atwell's rookie game, like rookie start. Like, that felt like Tutu Atwell finally got a chance to be that guy. And immediately, like, kind of what I was saying in our last show, like, they left a lot on the field. Baker Mayfield left a lot on the field. Tutu Atwell was dicing up almost the exact same secondary last year, and he just didn't get the ball because of Baker Mayfield's limitations. Stafford, he took advantage of it. And for anyone that was worried that, he could work on the outside and get off the line of scrimmage, well, they were proven wrong. Tutu looked really good. Nacua looked really good. And, Van Jefferson, I felt for him, man. You talk about feeling for Cam Akers. I felt for Van, because at least Cam Akers, he's getting 21 carries. At some point or another, it's like, man, Van Jefferson was not getting the ball a lot. So when he dropped that touchdown, because that was a touchdown, that's not a drop he normally has. So that had to have been upsetting. And we got to talk for a second about Tyler Higbee, who is the greatest Rams tight end in their history. I don't think people give him enough respect, Alexis. 3 catches, over 40 yards, didn't have to do anything crazy, right? But what he did in the run game, opening up some holes for Kyron Williams, especially near the goal line, he doesn't get enough credit. He's become a really good blocking tight end. He's a top 10 tight end in football, and he's the best Rams tight end of all time. And I just don't feel like, I understand they don't have a John Mackey, they don't have a Kellen Winslow, a Rob Gronkowski, Tony Gonzalez, anybody like that. But Higbee doesn't get enough credit. And I feel like there were a lot of people that were trying to trade him in the offseason and saying, well, if we're going to, we're not going to keep Floyd and so forth, why are we keeping Higbee? Higbee's still valuable. And so, by the way, so was Hopkins, who I thought looked good in the limited opportunities. If he didn't slip, Alexis, I would have made myself some money. I picked Hopkins anytime scorer, and unfortunately he slipped right at the goal line, but they were looking right at him. I had the idea.
Almost. There's always next week.
I don't think he's getting one next week.
Oh yeah, we'll do an episode on that, but I'm already having anxiety about that. But yeah, the offense looked really good, and again, I understand it was it's not like Seattle is San Francisco, but they have a pretty decent defense. They're certainly not, I don't think at the bottom ranks. I thought that the Rams looked really good, so I was excited to see all of those guys that we talked about do really well, especially Kyron, who I think will only get better from here. But again, get him off the kick return. I don't like it when any starter on any team is doing it just bothers me, because I just feel like, I don't know, it just makes me scared.
No, I get it. I mean, I wasn't even a fan of the Steelers. Remember when they used Antonio Brown on the punt return. Like, why are you doing that? So he's the best
Yeah, it
receiver in
just
football, and you're putting him out there to get hurt.
it
Like, that's what
yeah,
you're
I don't
doing.
like it. Well, and that's how Kyron got hurt on special teams the
Yeah.
first game of last season, and he got a high ankle sprain and was out for 6 to 8 weeks. So it was like I just didn't like it. And then they had Ronnie Rivers in towards the end to do one. But he
They
waived
should
for
just
fair
stick with
catch.
that.
Yeah.
Just stick with that.
But anyways, let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the other side of it, because the defense was also, I think, kind of like people were really nervous about it, because as we talked about in our preview episode, they're very young, they're very unproven. Like, we weren't even totally sure like who was for sure going to start at some of these secondary positions, because it's just been so in flux during training camp and practice that it was kind of like, well, I guess we're going to find out on Sunday. But there were 2 sacks, and I actually learned this today when I looked at the official box score. Each of those sacks was divided into halves officially. So we had 4 players get credited with a sack. We had Aaron Donald, because Byron Young, Michael Hoyt, and slipping my mind, I can pull it up here, Jake, if you remember
Kobe
it.
Turner.
Kobe Turner. That's right. Kobe Turner.
Yeah.
Of course. So pretty good against a fairly decent offensive line with Seattle, although they did actually end up losing their 2 starting tackles, which that's an issue that now Seattle has to work out. Unfortunate, but the secondary looked pretty good. I mean, Darion Kendrick, actually, you and I have been pretty vocal. He had a rough season last season. I thought he looked a little better this game. Not perfect, but he looked better. Our young corners were in there, and a guy named DK Metcalf did not have a very good game. And it is very hard to give DK Metcalf a bad game in the NFL. For starters, just because of his size. And he got really frustrated, and he took it out on Witherspoon, which was not cool. And I was surprised he wasn't ejected for that, Jake. I don't know if he wasn't ejected because it just wasn't seen like in real time.
Wouldn't rule that out.
I mean, it was just like a weird, because like when I saw it, it was like a replay. So I didn't even know that it happened in real time because the camera, wasn't showing it on the screen. But for anyone who missed that, DK Metcalf, when there was a dead ball, he just decided to knock out Witherspoon from behind, just shove Witherspoon from behind, which was not a good look. But he got frustrated. That's the point, is these Seahawks receivers did not have a very good day. The person who had the best day was Kenneth Walker. Which
and then they
he didn't even have
the ball.
And it's like he didn't even have an amazing day. He just got the most action out of everybody on that Seahawks offense because they were struggling against this Rams defense. Jake, what was the biggest takeaway for you from this Rams defense on Sunday?
I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is that second half. I mean, the second half adjustments for Hugh Morris. Look, we talked about it. We let people know this is not going to be bend don't break 2.0 entirely. Like, they're going to play more aggressive. Like, remember, I said that in the last episode, and we were saying that they played more aggressive. They were as advertised, but they were beyond as advertised. Okay, because there were people that were like, I mean, I saw the PFF guys. I have receipts that were like, how can you expect to win an NFL football game when Michael Hotcht is one of your starters? It's like, well, to be honest with you, to be fair to you, I don't know why Michael Hotcht, okay, his name is Hoyt, but I don't know why he's covering DK Metcalf ever. But it didn't matter because this team was just, man, they were just absolutely out there. And what was so fascinating to me, there were only 3 guys that played every single snap on the defense. Ernest Jones, who's become an absolute leader. He looks like he absorbed some of Bobby Wagner's abilities. Not enough because he had 19 tackles, and that dude is not, he's ageless, man. He is really ageless. But Ernest Jones looked great. And then hats off to Russ Yeast and Jordan Fuller. See, Jordan Fuller is a really good safety. He just needs to stay healthy. Russ Yeast, we didn't even know what Russ Yeast was. We're just like, all right, they really like him. Okay. the number 9th overall PFF safety, like ahead of Talanoa Hufanga, ahead of, Kyle Hamilton. Like, he was in the top 10 this week and he looked it on tape. I think when you look at Russ Yeast, just his ability to play all over the secondary, like, it's really exciting. And like, I feel like he was always a good cover guy, but I just think his ability as a tackler, like, I trust him in tackling situations. And, I think he's a really good player. And I think he's intelligent. And I think we, once again, are watching yet another. See, this is the highlight of this week, Alexis. Going into it, the narrative was the Rams can't develop talent. It's why they drafted a bunch of rookies. But Russ Yeast was a 7th rounder last year. And he's starting, and he's playing really well in his first game. Jordan Fuller was the 6th rounder. Okay. Kobe Turner looked really good. Okay. He was a late 3rd. Byron Young, 3rd rounder. He looked really good. 5 pressures, same as Donald. Had a really nice speed to power rush where, he just ate that guy's lunch. But Darion Kendrick, another late round pick, 6th rounder. Not going to lie, Darion Kendrick, and I felt bad saying this because, like, Bleacher Report told me when I was doing my live stream, they're like, you got to pick some losers. You can't just have all winners. And I was like, it's so hard. Like, I was like, Cam Akers is the obvious one there. Van Jefferson with the drop. I'm like, who do I make a loser? And I was like, oh, well, Darion Kendrick, he gave up the touchdown. But I have to say, because I've gotten some blowback about that. Like, nah, DK played well. And I was like, yeah, you know what? DK did play well. Darion Kendrick played well. He gave up the touchdown to DK Metcalf. But I think what we saw from Kendrick is that he's playing more confident. He's more sticky in coverage. We didn't see that last year, Alexis. And I know we didn't see that in the Arizona game because we talked about that last year. That's ingrained in my brain against Marquise Brown. Brown had like 13 catches and they were all against Darion Kendrick. So it was really nice because you and I were really, like, I'll be honest. We really were kind of back and forth on this. Like, is it smart to start Kendrick? I would go with Trey Tomlinson. I think everyone was going to go with Trey Tomlinson. Kendrick balled out. Okay. He gave up a touchdown, bad rep. Aside from that, only gave up 11 yards, 2 receptions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, across the board, that's kind of what we saw players on this Rams defense was just exceeding expectations. I think if anything, a lot of us were just hoping, we'd go into Seattle and we'd hold our own. Right. But we did more than hold our own. I thought that we actually, kind of made a fool out of Seattle's offense a lot of times. And just goes back to what I was saying is this team is not tanking.
No.
The behavior that you witnessed from this football team on Sunday is not that of a tanking football team. So I think now everybody gets it. I don't think anybody watched that game and is still on that train. But just in case you still have that little thought in the back of your minds, no, it's not happening. Yeah, I'm excited about this defense going forward. I think that, as much as I like Byron Young on the edge, Jake, I'm almost now in a way wanting us to sign a veteran edge
even more.
Yeah, because it's like, look at what we can do with what we have. Right. But
yeah,
it's not a perfect defense. There still are obviously some holes. Like, if we're holding our own and more now, like, go get that edge guy. I'm not saying like trade for Chase Young, right? I'm not saying like that.
Yeah, I'd be here for it, but maybe not early.
Maybe not this early, but you don't have to do that. Just go get just a solid,
Malik Reed.
Yeah, like it could be a veteran, it could be just somebody to pair alongside Byron Young and just give this defense even more oomph. Going forward, because we see what they can do. But yeah, like before this game, I was like, oh yeah, we definitely need edge, but like, we're not going to do anything. After this game, I'm like, oh, come on, let's like trade. Like, you know what I mean? But we'll see. I
100% know what you mean. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, wow, okay, so this team is literally what I thought it was going to be. I didn't think they'd win 30-13, but this team is what I thought it was going to be. In every asset, really. every aspect. Excuse me. I think I said it last time we talked. I was like, look, this offensive line, I'm not concerned with, Alexis. I think there are people that are way too low on this offensive line. Stafford's going to be fine. This offense is going to be a top 5 offense. Again, understand it's week 1, but that all looked pretty good. And then the defense, I was like, this defense could finish top 15, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's going to start off slow. So to see them be this far ahead of where I thought they were going to be, yeah, absolutely. Go out and get Malik Reed, get a veteran in there, get somebody that has the Fangio scheme in his blood. He worked with Fangio with the Broncos. He worked with Fangio just recently with the Dolphins. He got cut after, let's be honest here. They are loaded at edge, Emmanuel Ogba is not even starting for them because they're so loaded with Chubb and Jalen Phillips. So I think Malik Reed makes a lot of sense, can help in the run. I think that's what I would say about that.
Well, Jake, there's a lot obviously that's going to happen going forward, but just focusing on week 1, we won. And that is always something to celebrate. I'm very happy about it. I was very happy with what I saw on Sunday, and I'm very optimistic going forward. And guys, our next game is against the San Francisco 49ers. We will have an episode previewing that out this weekend. Going to be a little bit of a different ball game against a very different team. Not going to lie to you guys. Like I said, there were 3 teams that played well this weekend, including the Rams. One of the other ones was the 49ers. So going to be very interesting for Jake and I to break that down and talk about that upcoming matchup. Kind of a different vibe, but excited for it nonetheless, and feeling optimistic. So guys, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JKBogen, and we'll be back later this week previewing the week 2 matchup. But until then, guys, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.